Hey everyone, so I want to introduce today Marissa. Marissa was on the channel back in 2020 when she had just passed the CPC exam, and she was sharing with us her experience having gone through that exam process. And now Marissa is a very successful auditor. She is an SME with the AAPC. She's done so many amazing things. So I wanted to bring her back to talk about that road to success and get some insight on how maybe you can also achieve your goals in medical coding. So, Marissa, I want to talk first about, I remember back in December of 2020, you had sent me an email and you were so frustrated because you had all of this wonderful experience in billing and you just gotten your CPC. You were literally applying everywhere and were not having luck finding a coding job. You were just denied and denied and denied, you said, and you just were like, Victoria, like, what do I do? So can you take us back to kind of that part of your journey to when you were so frustrated and couldn't get a job, and then kind of how you've transformed now into where you are now?
Yeah, so I got my first billing job. I did get a billing job pretty easy. I have a certificate from my local community college in billing and coding. So I went ahead and did that, got my certificate. It took me a couple months to get the billing job, but I found somewhere that was willing to train me because school is a lot different than on-hands work. So I was really excited to get a place that would train me to all the ins and outs of billing. So my title was a denial management specialist. So I worked all of the back-end claims, AR, payment posting from time to time, writing a lot of claim appeals. So that was really good experience because when you learn all that, you kind of know how it goes the other way. So you kind of get from start to finish how a life of a claim and how that works. So I was working in billing for about a year. I enjoyed my job, but of course I'm looking towards the future, looking for increase my salary because I definitely wasn't making very much at the time, which a lot of people, sometimes you have to start at the bottom of the barrel. So I was looking around, hey, I want to be a coder, I think now. And at the time, my supervisor held, I think, 5 credentials, and she was actually an instructor, had her instructor license. So I was like, hey, I came to her one day and was like, I think I'm interested in coding. I would really like to go that route. And the place I was working was a small doctor's office. They only had one coder position, and she had been there a long time. It didn't look like she was going to go anywhere anytime soon. So I knew that I was probably going to have to move on. I kind of knew that before I even got started. So she kind of motivated me. She was my mentor during the process. I signed up online for a CPC course. I did it all online. I think it took me about 5 months to complete the course. Passed with my great 93%. Loved that. I did really well, studied very hard. So then, okay, now I have my certification. Give me a job, right? So I discussed it with my supervisor at the time. I knew that I was going to have to move on. So we discussed that, started looking for coding roles, and she helped me support that, which was really awesome because you don't get that at a lot of jobs. Yeah, I was denied almost right away, denial emails left and right. So very frustrated. I felt like I put in all this time, 5 months of studying, very hard, studying very long nights. I have 2 children, so it was very hard. One of them was like a newborn at the time. So I was really struggling, studying, really putting in the time and effort, thought, well, now I feel like I can get a job. I have all this billing experience also because I didn't get my apprentice, so I didn't have my A. I didn't have CPC-A. I just had CPC. A lot of people have to do the apprentice status, right? So I thought, well, with this, since I don't have my apprentice status, I should be able to get a coding job like that. That's not the case. I struggled even with my knowledge and my certificate, my CPC, and all that billing, work. I still could not find a coding job. And I did reach out to Victoria because I was like an avid watcher of her channel, especially in the beginning. I was like there. So watched all her videos, trying to take advice from her, kind of reached out to her because I was really struggling. And then I think there was a YouTube video that she did with Tony Elhams, I believe. It was about LinkedIn. And I thought, well, I don't have a LinkedIn, so I'm going to start one. So I did, and now it's kind of grown. I have like 1,600 connections on there now. So I really believe that making connections gets you closer to where your goal is. A lot of people say, connect, connect, connect. Shortly after making the LinkedIn, making sure everything looked good, it reflected my resume, my experience, I kind of put myself out there, started applying for more jobs. And I did eventually land after I moved around a couple times. I did have a couple different billing jobs in between because I was trying to get, more of a salary increase each time. And some people viewed that as kind of job hopping, but it really gave me more experience down the line. I got different specialty experience, learned just a ton of stuff, right? So I did land my first coding role at a local hospital. It was a smaller department, but I did finally get in to be a coder, a real coder. My first badge I got as a coder. I was so excited, took a picture of it. I worked in the ED, I worked urgent care. I learned a lot. And from there, I worked in that role for, I think, 10 months. And then now I'm an auditor. So that's a big jump from going, I had billing jobs for a couple years. Then I was a coder for just like 10 months. And now I'm like an auditor, right? So a lot of people think that's a huge jump. And how are you already prepared for that? Well, the company that I work for now was willing to train the same way my first billing job, they were willing to train. So I got a very unique opportunity to be an auditor. So I audit physicians coding. So I actually don't audit like other coders. I audit what the physicians, they select their own codes, like their E&M levels. Yeah. And I mostly do E&M with minor procedures. And then what I do every week is present my findings to them. So I do have to have conferences every week, but that's where I'm at. And I also have a side, like she mentioned, I also work for AAPC on a part-time basis. So I think I'm doing pretty well. And I just feel like I've met all my goals and it happened so fast. But once you put in the work and really try, I think everybody can get where they want to be.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it's shocking how quickly you can sometimes meet some of those goals when you really set yourself a plan and stick to it. Like one of my big goals in my career was always, oh, I want to speak at HealthCon, because I thought to myself, oh, well, speaking at a national conference, that's like you've made it. That's the big thing. And I was only a few years into my career when I had, I think, written an article for Healthcare Business Monthly, and they're like, "Wow, this was great. You should ask to come to HealthCon on and speak on the same topic." And I got in, and I'm like, "Okay, well, now I've reached the top of what I thought I was going to do. So now what? Now what's next?"
Right.
So how did you kind of get involved with the AAPC? Because I know they watch people, and they have a tendency to just kind of sneak up and tap you on the shoulder.
Yeah, so I was I was reached out on LinkedIn actually to work for them as a contractor for a teaching assistant job. That's really where I started to connect with people from AAPC. My first certification was in 2020, so it had been a couple years, but I was contacted in 2021, so it was only been a year. But they were looking for newer coders to help them out with some projects they had. They're starting a new department with teaching assistants and trying to really help their students be more involved, and especially moving towards this new online environment with their exams being all online. So I think they're trying to set up to really help their students, which is great. I think that's great because some people can't self-study and they need an instructor. They need somebody there to ask questions. So I don't know if they just saw me posting on LinkedIn, because I did that a lot because I still wanted to connect with people. And that was about the same time I got my first coding role. So they reached out to me and interviewed me for a position. And then that turned into the other role, working as a subject matter expert for their CPB product. So that's the billing certification. Since I had that certification at the time, they kind of needed someone to help review the curriculum and make changes. So it's been a fun ride. And I really have met a lot of people along the way. Very fortunate for that. So they've expanded that program though. So I think they have like a team of like 15 on the teaching assistant side now. Yeah. So it's great. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really nice to see that they offer now those kind of paced, scheduled classes now versus when we used to just be on your own pace 100% of the time. And I think it gives students a time that they know that they have to ask questions versus shooting off emails all hours of the day.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
So having gone from kind of like just getting certified to now being an auditor and a subject matter expert in what, like 2 years,
Yeah.
has there been some criticism with your progress? Because I know um, working in medical coding, it's very female dominated. There's a lot of hormones, there's a lot of emotions. It's very typical that when someone accelerates at a fast level, that there's often a lot of people who kind of look internally and go, why wasn't it me? And they don't see, maybe a lot of the tears and a lot of the hard work and the dedication that you put in. So have you had to face any sort of criticism with your progress?
I've had a couple of comments, some direct messages about me being a job hopper, which
Oh.
I did switch bill. I mean, I had 3 different billing jobs within a year and a half. So that's a lot to some people. I myself find it a stepping stone for where I wanted to go.
Mhm.
And I never said anything back. I mean, some people might see that way. I know the traditional way of looking at a position or a job is you need to stay in one job forever so you can be loyal and make sure you're doing the right thing. But right now, in the way things are, sometimes you have to make a move. And, I really wanted to stay at each job for a year or something, but something better came along. And it I took the opportunity. So right now in my auditing role, I'm definitely happy with that. The only other thing is I have had a couple comments that my job at AAPC, my being a contractor, is, well, how did someone like you get that position, like you? So yes, I don't have 10 years of experience.
Yeah.
I'm not a fellow, but I definitely have put in the work, and actually helped shape that teaching assistance program. I created different things for that and really accelerated. So I think that it just depends on, I'm not going to say luck, but I mean, if you're putting yourself out there, LinkedIn is a great place to connect. You're making those connections, and you just, if you're, I mean, like your channel, you might have faced some criticism. I think that once you kind of put yourself out there, you're going to unfortunately face some, but you can't let that drag you down. You're
Mhm.
doing this for you. So don't forget, and your family, especially like if you have young kids like me.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my reason. I need to better myself and get farther and meet my goals, and not just for me, but for them. So just remember, it's for you.
Yeah. I think honestly, Marissa, you've probably just done such excellent work that you can't not notice that. Like it's going to speak for itself when you're putting in such dedication and working so well at what you're doing, people notice that easily. Has your prior experience working in denials and working in billing, has that been helpful in your auditing role?
I would say absolutely. So I've actually worked pretty much every step of the way in the revenue cycle. So I've worked scheduling, it's very short time in scheduling, registration. So I've from the very start of a claim, the life of a claim, right? The revenue cycle. So we've got registration, we got scheduling, we've got, well, then you have the patient, being seen. You've got payment posting. I've done it all. I feel like AR,
Mhm.
medical, yeah, all that. So when I'm looking as an auditor, looking back to see how was this billed, I can bring up the image of the claim, and I know, looking at even like a traditional CMS 1500, I know how to read that from my billing experience. Some people look at that and I have another auditor I know that doesn't even know how to read a CMS 1500. So me knowing that on the back end helps me understand more of the process. So if there was a change by like the CBO, which is the central billing office in Epic, if something was changed along the way or a modifier was added, I can see that from that and know from my billing experience how that works and how that would have been added. I do think that helps. I think working all those positions helped me understand more on the, being on the very back end on what happens through the whole process.
Oh yeah, especially with systems like Epic, because they're programmed oftentimes in ways where you're looking at something in the system and it looks a certain way, but you don't realize that there was a back end edit that's fixing something that only is going to appear on the claim form. Unless you actually go and look on the claim form, you're not going to know that that was switched over.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's very interesting. And yeah, there was something I was going to say about split shared visits. I know some of those kind of concepts can be difficult if you don't have that kind of billing knowledge or billing background. Um, Now recently, I hear that you have decided that you wanted to go back to school.
Yes, I started school July 1st of this year for my bachelor's in health information management, so HIM. I'm attending WGU, so it was a great program from what I heard from a lot of people. I am sitting for that, or I'm going to sit for my RHIA after I'm done with the bachelor's program, because I'm always looking forward. I'm always looking what is going to be my next goal. You always want to have goals. You want to say, well, the buck stopped here. I'm done. I'm an auditor. That's it, right? I mean, eventually, and not right now. I'm definitely not making a move anytime soon. I'm very happy with my position. But later in life, I might say, well, what if I want to be a coding manager or an auditor or, whatever else comes my way? Having that bachelor's degree might be required. And also I'll have that years of experience, but I also just think that it's kind of a safety net for me. So then later in life, when things have maybe relaxed a little, that I'll have that under my belt and be able to be like, okay, well, I'm ready to make a move. I have all this, I have my degree already. So, yep, it's been exciting. So I've learned a lot so far.
Yeah, and I think that's the right way to do it, because a lot of people I've seen, they'll go and be like, oh, I'm going to get my bachelor's degree and then I'm going to make more money as a coder. And I'm like, well, not necessarily.
No,
Typically, when they pay you for a coder, they're paying you based off of what your job tasks are. So if you're doing the same job tasks, the fact that you have a bachelor's degree or don't have a bachelor's degree isn't going to change that at all. So it's not going to change your value to that company and how much you're worth. Usually, if you get a bachelor's degree, it's better to have a plan. I want to get into management. I want to, be a director. I want to, be a more advanced auditor. That's kind of when that comes into play. Not that I would ever discourage anyone from being like, I just want to get my bachelor's degree because I think it would be great for my education. Awesome, do that. As
yeah,
long as you have the right intent for it. Absolutely.
the
Is
same
your
thing.
employer?
Oh, I was going to say the same thing happens for credentials, though. You know how people
Yeah.
get multiple credentials and if they're not using them. So if you're getting a credential and you're like, well, maybe I can use this in a future job, doesn't necessarily mean they're going to pay you more. So yeah, I mean, I understand that.
Yeah, when I got my second credential, which is a kind of funny way to put it, but the first time I got an additional credential and not just my CPC, that was the first thing people were asking. They're like, "Are you going to make more? Are they going to pay you more?" And I'm like, "Well, not right now." But eventually, when I went to go into an auditing role, I already have that. Now I don't have to worry that I'm going to have to scramble or that it's going to be, a stipulation on my employment that I have to get it within a certain amount of days or something of being hired. Like it's already done.
Right.
So, do you think you're going to stay in coding then until retirement?
So I put in all this work. I'm doing the education now to set myself up later in life. I definitely think this is going to be my career path. I've definitely had other career paths that I've attempted, not worked out, or never finished schooling for. But this is the first time I've actually said, oh, I'm finishing school. I'm actually rising the ranks or whatever you want to say. So I think this is definitely the career path for me. And I definitely think I'll be in this industry until I'm ready to go retire.
Yeah. I think there's definitely going to be some shifts in the industry between now and retirement. There's probably going to be, and we've been saying it for years, a more of a shift from coders becoming more like auditors just to kind of start out. And I'm really fascinated to see how things are going to move along with all of the different technologies that are being implemented and how much, data we're going to be tracking, how it's going to shift when we go to ICD 11. So I think it's definitely a good industry to still be in. And you just got to buckle up sometimes for some of those changes. Next year, we've got all those E&M changes coming for all of our other non-office visits that are getting adopted to the new medical decision making. I just got my my updated CPT book today, and I noticed there's a whole little compendium that apparently it comes with
Oh
now
yeah.
for the E&M changes.
Hmm.
So that's exciting.
Yeah. I'm excited. I haven't got my books yet, but hopefully soon. So they're getting shipped to me, I think. So
So Marissa, not to put you on the spot, but like I have so many people that, their number one complaint is I can't find a job. I can't find a job. And I wish I could snap my fingers and like change it for these people. And you go on these medical coding forums and groups and stuff. You see it all the time. People are frustrated with their inability to find a job right away. And I get it. Like when you go to school and you're becoming a medical coder, like you want your first job is to be a medical coder. You don't want to go and work scheduling and registration and all that stuff. Do you have any tips for those people who are experiencing maybe some of that frustration that you had back then when you were unable to get your first coding position?
I mean, yeah, and I had to, I had to settle for billing. When I was making those moves, I wanted to go straight into coding. I didn't want another billing job, but that's what I did to get into different. So I was like, well, if I can't get a coding job, I'll just do another specialty. Then I'll put that on my resume and then be like, oh, well, I've done, different specialties. And then the LinkedIn thing, absolutely. If now some people don't want to you don't even have to put your last name. I think you can just put your initial on there if you don't want your full name out there. There are different privacy controls on LinkedIn, which is really great. So I mean, I would say network, absolutely number one, and get your foot. I mean, we all say getting your foot in the door, and that really does work. I mean, I'm a proof of that. Working all these jobs and I was working scheduling, I was like, oh, I wish this would end. Right. But when I was working that, I'm like, this is going to lead me to coding. And then coding is going to lead me to auditing. I know it. I can feel it. These are my goals and I'm working towards those. So
sometimes it's one of those, the juice is worth the squeeze things where it's like, oh, this isn't what I wanted right now, but it's going to pay off. And if I just stick with it a little bit, eventually we're going to see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Absolutely. So yeah, just stick with it and just remember why you're doing it. And yeah, I mean, it's hard to get motivation sometimes, but just remember your end goal. Always have that in sight.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Marissa. I think it was so great for you to come back on the channel today and kind of update us on where you are. And I can't wait to see where you're going to be in another couple of years, finishing up your degree and probably, eventually managing a whole coding department, I'm sure.
Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I'm definitely gonna be in auditing for a few years. So, but yeah, it was nice to be back on the channel. Been a couple years, and always love talking to you and knowing more what's going on with you. So,
absolutely. So thank you so much, Marissa, and everybody. Don't forget to keep on coding on.